Hey everybody, I think I clicked the button right on time. So we're live. It's 9 p.m. in Estonia, 7 p.m. in Portugal. I don't know, maybe 4 p.m. No, 2 p.m. I think on the east coast of the U.S. and really late in Asia. But nice to see everybody here. My name's Kevin Murcko, CEO here at Coinmetro. And this is called an AMA. That stands for Ask Me Anything. You're going to ask questions, I'm going to answer them. Pretty simple. So whether you're watching us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, X, my apologies, Elon. Just post your question and hopefully I'll get to all of them. Let's see what happens. There's already a few. So look like Monkey Biscuits got the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth question all in at the same time. So congrats on that. That's gold all the way through copper. I don't know. Considering 60 cents has been the price floor for 2 years, do you think it will act like a really strong resistance level in the future? Well, it's actually a decent question. So the orders that are currently there won't be automatically removed. So if orders do remain, it could potentially be resistance in the future. There's also going to be some psychology around that level, that's for sure. And there will be a lot of flat chart. There'll be a flat chart. There'll be a lot of resistance on the chart at 60 cents, considering that it sat there for around 2 years. So potentially, I tend to think that depending on what price action looks like after the floor is pulled and within the months after the floor is pulled, that there may be enough space to get enough momentum where 60 cents really doesn't play any role in the future as far as resistance goes. Can you explain why XCM APR is going to be removed altogether? That was my major reason for staking XCM since Mars was underwhelming. I really hope the new Mars makes up for it big. So yeah, Mars was underwhelming, not really because of the design of Mars, more so because we launched Mars, we hit a bear market, nobody was staking. And we weren't getting a lot of new clients either as a business. And so that led to not a lot of assets being staked on Coinmetro. Coinmetro not generating a lot of revenue from staking and thus not able to push some of that revenue into Mars. You can run the what if math in your head about if 100 to 200 to 300 to 500 times more assets were staked, what that would have looked like for Mars. So Mars itself I don't think was underwhelming, but the result of a bear market and not a lot of new clients and not a lot of old clients staking either led to, well, what we've seen over the last 2 years. If you saw the very special AMA, which was roughly, was it the end of April? I don't remember when we did it. Was it the end of April? Nah, it wasn't 2 weeks ago. It was more than a month ago, I think. Anyway, that AMA had a nice little slide deck that went over what the new Mars is going to look like. Along with kind of the current way that Mars works, there will be additional pools attached to Mars that will essentially hold just about every asset on the exchange. And there's going to be more of a push for new assets, new staking programs, and other passive income vehicles that get pushed into Mars. So why remove the APR? Well, what we want to do here is make sure that we reduce sell pressure as much as we can, especially after removing the floor and before we see how the, let's say, 4-year cycle pans out. And so because of that, we do not want to be giving away XCM that potentially can go right into the sell side of the book, right on the offer as soon as people receive it. Now, will XCM ever come back as APR into Mars? I'm not going to say no 100%, but it will absolutely be in Mars pretty much right from day one. Reason being is that any XCM pairs that are traded, some of that XCM revenue is going to go into a pool like every other base asset on the exchange. And as long as volumes are hit, whatever the KPI is on that on that Mars pool, they will be allocated to Mars. With increasing volume, that potential XCM alone could be, or more XCM could be paid, I should say, than were paid as APR. I think the changes to Mars are absolutely big, Now it's on us to make sure that new clients, more clients, advertising, et cetera, cleaning up everything that we need to clean up on our side to make sure that it's not just the methodology that's great, it's the execution that's actually amazing. Any heavy investors on the hook yet? Right now, I've been talking to lots of investors, and that hasn't stopped. There's currently right now 2 investors that I'm courting, and we will be making an additional push for let's say a larger push for new investors come Q3 into Q4, and that's going to tie into the launch of the DGO, or Decentralized Governance Organization, as well. So completely on the hook, no, but there are more and more talks, and the business itself, let's say behind the scenes, looks a lot different than what the business looked like behind the scenes last year even, or especially the year before that, etc. So, but you'll definitely hear more from me about investors as we move through the next few months. How in depth are your partnerships with Thought and Little AI? Well, when it comes to Thought, you guys know we have Thought. We're the only exchange still that has Thought listed, and we also have Thought staking. So in that sense, we are a very close partner to THT and Thought AI. I have regular calls with Andrew from Thought AI, their CEO. So yeah, we have a pretty good partnership. On the Little AI side, we are in the process, I think, of building out a bit more of that partnership. We obviously have Little AI Staking, which is in cooperation with Little AI. It's treasury staking, but Little AI basically put up the treasury for us to be able to offer that program. And I have no doubt we will work more with them in the future, and we also use their products. Mr. A, hey man. Would you say there's a good chance that Bitcoin will hit $200,000 euros? I guess this cycle. Also, do you think ETH will get an ETF approval before the bull market ends? So first question first, do I think it'll hit 200 this cycle? Well, if this cycle repeats as has the last 4 cycles, or yeah, this is the 4th cycle, I guess. So if this 4th cycle repeats as per the other 3 cycles, we potentially could see 200K. ETFs. And the advent of more and more, let's say, institutional custody and institutional buying, I guess on paper make it seem like that it's inevitable, but institutions buy and sell differently than retail, especially degen retail. So while we may have seen 3 similar 4-year cycles, institutions may be thinking, I don't think that's happening anymore. And if they see 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, whatever amount of percent on their, on their balance sheet, and they're up, they're probably going to be scaling out of positions. They're not going to hold until right before everybody capitulates to try and pop all their money into altcoins, and go buy that island they've been looking at every night since they invested their first $1 into some shitcoin that turned into 10K. So it's a bit of a different ball game there. Now, will Bitcoin hit 200K? I think the range that Bitcoin will see, and it's going to be a big one, in terms of this cycle, in terms of sometime during the end of 2025, if we have a repeating cycle, will be somewhere in the range of 120 to 180K. Could it hit 200? Sure, it could. Will it eventually? More than likely. But right now, it's hard to predict what the cycle is going to look like. Many things that have normally happened up to the halving, after the halving, etc., are happening. They may not be happening exactly the same, but they're reminiscent of previous cycles. So right now it looks like that cycle may be repeating itself. ETF on ETH, I don't think ETH is going to get an ETF approval. It's much easier to argue that ETH is a potential security. I'm not saying that they will do that or that's what will happen, but it is easier to argue. And Wall Street, to be honest, you could argue Bitcoin's a security as well. I mean, honestly. However, Bitcoin does have a better argument on the commodity side than ETH does. And having said that, Wall Street likes Bitcoin because it's performed really well as a speculative asset. And they can put any narrative they want behind that to make themselves sound smarter than they are, but that's why they like it. And while ETH has also performed quite nicely since its ICO, there is definitely a bigger barrier, I believe, to getting ETH into an ETF, at least in the US markets, let's say now, especially in an election cycle when, I love crypto isn't going to garner you a huge amount of additional support. What are your thoughts on Parsec? Still bullish? Also, Relio and Block Square. I still like Parsec. Still waiting like everybody else for information on React and what that's going to look like, what that token swap might look like, what the ratio is going to look like, etc. As I said in the beginning with Parsec, I think what they're building and what they continue to build is useful. I think they need to focus on making sure that people understand why it's useful, and probably partnerships that put it to use that then dumb down the experience for the average user, meaning, you can think there's a lot of analogies that could be made here, but if you make microchips, you don't sell them to regular people, you sell them to computer companies and cell phone companies who make cell phones that people click a button and it does stuff. And I think that's, this if this then that type approach, which is what Parsec tried to do initially, I think at the end of the day is what they need. They don't need to create it. They either need partners to do so, and a wide network of partners, and they do have some partners that are kind of looking down that path and have done some of that work already. And so I still like Parsec. I still own Parsec. Really on Block Square. So when it comes to real world assets, RWA, I've been talking about real world assets on here since probably one of the first AMAs we've ever done. I do think tokenization is the future for many, many reasons, and tokenization of pretty much everything. In fact, most things are already tokenized in some way, shape, or form in your digital life. And by token, meaning in the code somewhere on the website you're clicking on, there's probably a token, right? Tokens have been used, or the tokenization of things has been happening since the dematerialization of stuff when it went online. Now, when it comes to kind of tradable and tokens you can possess and move between wallets, that's kind of an upgrade. We'll consider that going from coach to business, okay? Or economy, sorry, I don't call it coach anymore. I don't know why, coach sounds so much better. Though economy sounds about right for what you get, I guess. I would say that while some companies were too early to RWA, these guys, their timing might be a bit better in terms of, we're in this hype cycle right now of RWA. We had an RWA hype cycle a few years ago. It kind of fizzled out. Question is now, will these real world asset tokens really be able to catch fire? Will they get into the hands of institutions? Do those institutions have a reason that they want to get their hands on these type of tokens? And will they really optimize something in the workflow that they're trying to optimize? Whether that be getting investors, whether that be investors getting a piece of real estate that they otherwise can't afford. Will that be admin, paperwork, blah 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 blah. So cost of capital, which is a big one. And that's the primary reason I like RWA's cost of capital. Capital is just cheaper. And a lot of that is because of admin and admin costs. But at the same time, there's still stuff that needs to be worked out there on the regulatory level and just the government level in general. So RWA is, a thing right now. The question is, who is going to be able to kind of make it through we don't give a shit anymore about RWA winter until RWA comes back and even stronger. Generally speaking, with kind of new, I wouldn't say an industry, but new stuff, new things, you have kind of the first guy that does it, too early. Nobody remembers that guy, right? Then the second guy who does it, or girl, whatever, catches on a bit, but they make some mistakes, whatever, doesn't work out. Third guy, fourth guy, whatever. Some things sometimes that first guy just happens to be really lucky. Sometimes that second guy gets lucky, sometimes it's the third guy. So I think what we need to see here is once RWA, the fire goes out a bit, who's really going to keep pushing, keep building, and get something on the table that shows real value. I guess that was for our friend Monkey Biscuits, who popped out like 50 questions, and even before I started. Amazing. All right, so Victor putting in some of his comments. Yep, I agree, Victor. Probably going to get rejected. Long time no see. Yeah, man. Well, I like to say everything's going good. I mean, some level of good. You know, I don't know if you have like a range of good. Like, this is not that great. This is amazing. You know, always somewhere in there. Have you considered reverting to an earlier price floor instead of scraping the floor altogether? And if so, why did you choose the latter? So it was talked about, for sure. It was talked about from a few angles, actually. One, just general kind of, let's say, I guess, price action in general. So, you know, maybe let's remove 60, put in, you know, 30, then go to 15, then go to whatever, and see what happens. The thing is that after this kind of experience with the price floor, now, before I say what I'm going to say, regardless of what we do, whether we got rid of it, didn't get rid of it, whatever, there's always going to be people that don't like the decision, right? That's just how, that's life. But after making the decision to remove it, either we remove it all the way, the market does what the market does, and XCM finds its price, or we remove it slowly, and XCM finds its price. Now, the one thing that, you know, doing that in levels, or let's say staged, might do is it provides a bit of psychological resistance. So, okay, now the floor is at 15, people put orders at 15, right? Then those might be sold through, we move the floor to 10, and then people put orders at 10, and then maybe at 10, there's enough buy orders to support the sell orders, and now we have true price. Or, you know, whatever that price may be. That's going to happen anyway. It might happen a bit less orderly, I guess, but I think after this experience, it just makes sense to kind of move on and just get the word floor out of our vocabulary entirely. I don't know what I'm going to call an actual floor now, but I'm going to have to think of something, maybe the below foot ceiling, something, you know, rather than using the F word, which in my house is no longer the F word. It's floor. Hello, will my open margin positions be closed automatically before trading is resumed on XCM on May 21st? So if you have XCM longs, yes, they will be. If you have XCM as collateral, then no, they won't be. So you should be either adding some collateral if you feel there may be an issue depending on XCM price. In most cases that we've looked at, and I mean literally 99% of cases, there won't be an issue even if XCM goes down, you know, well, even to 1 cent or below. And that's simply because the way that the collateral mechanism is built on margin, it's effectively around 7% of your overall collateral. So, but there is at least one situation I know of that's getting handled. Outside of that, though, yeah, margin longs, yes, and we will communicate when that's happening. It's more than likely happening on Monday, but you'll be communicated with for sure once it's done, and also while the process is ongoing. Victor, possible change monetary policy reacting to jobs and spending conditions around the summer could break things before the next bull cycle. In my opinion, we've got a strong bull period for September, October. And from means to Bitcoin, people tend to cash out at some point with those scenarios. Hey, so I know this isn't a question, Victor, but I'm going to comment on it anyway because it's a unique perspective. You know, I don't spend a lot of time looking at other people's perspectives anymore. I used to, and then I realized that it's either confirmation bias or it kind of only leads to confusion and potentially you accepting an opinion that you wouldn't have accepted otherwise. So I just try to look at all angles and then come with my own opinion, you know, and, you know, of course I have conversations with people, they tell me their opinion, that's fine, but I tend not to go like on Twitter and things like that, or X, whatever. You know, cycles happen everywhere in life. Life is very cyclical. I do not think that 4-year cycles will exist forever in crypto. I think those cycles will either become elongated or shortened, depending on what crypto markets we're talking about. Bitcoin cycles are going to be elongated because more institutional money is flowing in. But that, to me, will shorten then cycles for altcoins because you'll have less of the overall flow into Bitcoin profit taking going back into alts. And the altcoin market will change over time with regulation, etc. So, are we at the cusp or the point where this cycle changes? I think it has changed and will change, but I don't think it's completely changed. I still see signs from all angles, fundamental, technical, etc., that we will go into a kind of standard bull phase, Q3 into Q4, see that into Q1 next year, then have a range, then into Q3, Q4, 2025, see another catapult, and then capitulation 2026. Now, there could be varies on that, let's say variations on what's going to happen, right? But at the end of the day, it's what we've seen more or less. We've seen kind of what's happened up until the Bitcoin happening. We've seen now what's happened after. And while it's not identical, it's very similar to previous cycles. Yes, ETF money, yep. Retail money hasn't really yet started to come in, though it has with meme coins, it has with some AI tokens, etc. But retail basically follow what they read on things like Twitter, Reddit, etc. And while there is a growing voice of people saying something along these lines, the vast majority are pushing the 4-year cycle, which tells me we're probably going to see a general repeat of exactly that. I am optimistic that it's going to be removed on the 21st, yeah. Does CM support team have to fear getting replaced by AI, or what about the not so near future? No. I think, actually, Sam Altman said something in an interview. Not that I watch Sam Altman interviews, but I happened to see a headline, so I didn't even read the story, to be honest. But the headline had a quote, and it said that people would pay kind of large amounts of money for in-person and human interaction. Yeah. You know why? Because no matter how good an AI is, it's still an AI. So knowing that you're dealing with a person has a sense of security attached to it. And so while we will use AI for different things, just like every other business in the world will, I want to keep that part of our narrative, that part of our soul, Coinmetro, as human. So no worries there. Around 52K BT is still realistic, depending on some economic geographers, although its ETFs will probably help to maintain a strong floor for it. Yeah, well, we could definitely go lower than that as well on BTC. That's for sure. Profit taking on ETFs will lead to mainstream media stories, will lead to people that actually own BTC in their wallet freaking out, which will lead to even like a small capitulation event, of which, you're right, I think, the ETFs would help soften. Because some of that institutional money will just sit and wait. But at the end of the day, we could definitely go lower than 52K during the range, for sure. How long of a runway do you still have? Last time it was 6 months. Well, we had our first profitable month, as I think everybody knows here, since November 2021 in March. While April, May, and June, I don't expect to see a repeat, or July, though coming into August, September, October, I think that'll change. Maybe not so much in August, but August I think we'll see an uptick towards the second half of August, and into September we'll start to see the numbers move a bit stronger. We are generally in the same space. Some of that is because of kind of the market moving in our favor on some assets that we had, and we're able to cash out those assets to have a bit stronger balance sheet. And other things are just based on our revenues, which are still much larger than they were previously. Cost base hasn't moved really either to the north. It's still relatively stable. So we're holding on. That given week, given month, it can be anywhere from, let's say, 5 to 8 months, and it floats. And it's still hovering around 6. Will Ali hold his AMA in the future? I haven't seen him on AMAs in a while. Hey, Harold. So as of right now, Oliver is officially a Coinmetro employee until the end of May. This wasn't made public because, well, I mean, things change at businesses all the time, but since you're asking. So he's here till the end of May. Obviously, he's been with us almost since the beginning. He was an ICO supporter and kind of like a little brother to me in many ways. So, I think he made a lasting impact on Coinmetro, and without Oliver, Coinmetro wouldn't be what we are today. But like every relationship in life, at some point, paths need to, go in one direction and another path in another. And so, yeah, Oliver's going to go on to, I think, amazing things. So Oliver AMAs, at least not with Coinmetro, but potentially maybe somewhere else, I don't know. Will you list React after the PRQ React swap? Look like it's getting some hype. I expect we will, yes. Amen. First assessment on the effects of levels. I think it was a good launch. It was well received. It is, the first step in a broader change across the business. Actually, one of the first steps in a broader change across the business about when it comes to tokenomics in general and kind of economics of the platform. And I think it was an amazing first step. And yeah, so far so good. What do you need to onboard institutional traders? Well, there's a lot of things we need to do to onboard institutional traders. However, and maybe this is going to burst somebody's bubble, there aren't many institutional traders in crypto, to be very honest. And those that do exist are going to sit primarily in the majors, and they're now trading ETFs for Bitcoin, or they're trading futures, or they're trading options. And while, that's a lot of that volume might flow through something like Binance, slowly but surely, I guess you guys saw what happened in the US today. I don't think it'll get vetoed, so we'll see. Even if it does, it's going to come back at a vote at some point. And there will be banks, etc., that are going to custody Bitcoin, because right now, pretty much all that ETF Bitcoin's custodied by Coinbase. And so that's why they want, it's not because they like Bitcoin, it's because they don't want to see centralized counterparty risk. And so when that happens, you're going to see most of the quote-unquote institutional guys ending up trading through where they've always traded through, and that's already started to happen. When it comes to what I would call kind of high volume, high frequency, or professional retail, we need strong APIs. We need what you need is pricing on one side, and you need strong infrastructure. We have the pricing, we have some of the infrastructure, we have tech debt that's getting worked on now. Our goal between now and the end of the year is to make sure that our onboarding process and the ability for people to buy their first crypto and then automate buying crypto in the future and interact with other people buying crypto is going to be as smooth as possible, putting us ahead of anybody else in that realm in terms of our competition. And then towards the end of this year into early next year, it's going to be about doing pretty much what you're saying here, which is about more professional retail, which is a complete overhaul of APIs, making sure that they are absolutely above industry standard. And from there, retooling a lot of the, let's say, platforms, etc., that we believe that those type of traders are going to use, desktop, etc. You have thousands of trades, you're probably not going to be managing them on a mobile app like everybody else. So yeah, those things, the plan that's kind of in the works right now, again, between now and the end of Q4, beginning of Q4, it's all about getting ready for quote-unquote a bull run. I said quote-unquote a lot, but I'm trying not to do air quotes, so bear with me. I literally am like holding my hands underneath the desk so I don't do air quotes, and I almost did it about 5 times. So yeah, anyway, that's generally the plan. Focus on where we make our money, our core client base, and then start to pivot towards a more lucrative client base and expanding on that client base throughout next year. What are your plans for XCM on margin? XCM will not be tradable on margin when the floor is pulled, and will not return to margin until we have a market where it makes sense. Remember that we're the only credit provider on margin. And so if there is a not so liquid market, the ones that really get hurt, aside from those that may lose money, especially on open losing positions, is Coinmetro. And we already learned our lesson on that one. Hi Kevin, is it possible to downgrade from a business account to a personal account? Well, there's not really a downgrade. Is it possible to transfer from a business account to a personal account? That depends on a few factors. You can get in touch with support. We do have protocol to do this. If you've had a lot of transactions and deposits from business accounts, etc., it might not be possible, simply because you've already kind of transacted in the account, and so moving it from one to another might not be possible. But get in touch with support. They'll walk you through it, and hopefully we'll be able to sort you out. The other option, obviously, is to kind of open up a personal account and ask to have your assets transferred over, and then leave the business account as is, and then may potentially close it if you like. Are those volumes from traders, or it's most likely market makers balancing pools? I'm not sure what volumes. We do have on occasion where, yes, we do have market makers kind of trading against liquidity providers, and we're working on a few things to make sure that those type of volumes are excluded. It's not always those type of volumes. There are definitely traders that come here that trade between different fiat quote currencies on the same base. But yeah, so it depends. It depends. It's not always one. It's either one or the other. But it's not always, let's say, market makers rebalancing. Do you consider BTC to be decentralized? Public ledger, 3 mining pools, 3% of hash, deviating from Satoshi's vision? I don't know, Jeff. So apparently my mother is going real deep on Bitcoin here. Is it decentralized? Yes. Is it 100% decentralized? No, it's not. But having said that, public ledger doesn't stop it from being decentralized. 3 mining pools, well, that's not Bitcoin's fault. That's simply the market trying to dominate. I mean, that's what happens in a free market. So, and so deviating from Satoshi's vision, well, I mean, if Satoshi knew the limitations when he made Bitcoin, when he wrote, the underlying text, it's if his vision was that it was something, underground or only used by certain people, 7 transactions a second would have been fine. But if the vision was that it was going to continue to grow, then 7 transactions doesn't make digital cash. And it never will, and it never would have. And so, but is it decentralized? Well, obviously, it has many things that point to it being decentralized. The 51% hash, that's a broader argument that would take much longer time to have. But yes, the pools may control a large percentage of the hash rate, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they can take control of the network itself. So yeah, it's decentralized. Could it be more decentralized? It could be. Does anyone that's putting money into Bitcoin, real big money, generally care about these two or three things? No, they don't. And the main reason they don't is that they believe either in just, they want to make money speculating, and well, it's done great up till now, which isn't the best investment strategy, by the way. The other side is, that it's a better store of value over time, especially with rising inflation. And, well, I wouldn't call it a store of value, because a store of value would mean you basically have the same buying power, not necessarily a fuck ton more. Gold, in that sense, is a store of value. People are like, I bought gold and it hasn't gone up. It's the same price with inflation. Yeah, that's the point, store of value. But yeah, I don't know. The Satoshi Vision thing is kind of, it was an 8-9 page white paper written to try and figure out a way to create a peer-to-peer payments, either payment or movement of value system. And I think maybe dumbed down to kind of cash, talking about digital cash, but I think that's a bit of a dumb down of what it really wanted to do. And I think it's accomplished its goal. You can move value without a trusted third party. And so that was his vision, and I think it very well accomplishes that goal. Why were Russian passport holders but residents in Estonia banned from Coinmetro? Don't you think it's kind of discriminating? Oh, well, this wasn't because of us, my friend. That is EU regulation. So initially, something like a year and a half ago or something like that. I don't remember the exact timing. ECB basically said that Russian passport holders that were living inside the EU could hold 100,000 euros in a bank and up to 10,000 euros in an exchange in crypto. And then they revamped that shortly thereafter to say 0 in crypto. So yeah, that wasn't us. That was the ECB. And I do think it's pretty discriminatory. Absolutely. And I think the reason behind it is relatively ridiculous and doesn't make much sense. But that's why I'm not in politics, because I don't understand 99% of what politicians do. Do you think humans have free will? I think we have the ability to have free will. In this modern society, do most people practice or have, I should say, do most people practice free will? No, but they think they do. What kind of car do you drive? Well, I, for the last few years, really haven't had a car. I have a lease where I currently am, and it's a Peugeot something. Nothing fancy, nothing spectacular. I am not a car guy, never really have been. Oh, nice cars are nice, but I've actually never really owned a truly expensive car. Years back, I've had a few SUVs, etc. But for the past few years, up until very recently here, just because it just made my life a bit easier, I took Uber or Bolt. Yes, still excited about both of them. Absolutely. I've been looking for a solid phone that isn't spyware and doesn't combust. Any recommendations? Well, I don't know, man. I think they're all spyware at this point. But I have one of these flip Samsung things, which if you see the advertisement for this thing, the one that opens like this, it's a dude, and the one that opens like that, it's a woman. That always pisses me off. But anyway, my point is to say that I bring this thing in the sauna, and it lasts, 13, 14 minutes in the sauna before it overheats. It's pretty good. I've seen people with iPhones in the sauna, and they're done in 2 minutes. That also might be because of the glass and metal that just, reflects the heat. I don't know. I'm not into physics, but but yeah, they're all spyware, man. I mean, that's just the way it is. How big is Mars going to be? How much bigger than the 1% per asset we get now? Well, there's a little speculation involved in that question, but the goal is to the goal is to give you back more than you get now in terms of APR. So if you were an ICO contributor or the highest rung, currently you're getting about 4% APR plus really small amounts of bonuses across Mars, so you might be seeing like 4.4, 4.3. We want to beat that. When XCM Moon? Make your wildest guess. Well, let's see. So let's assume floor gets removed. Let's assume that we see a repeat of the cycle. We have, it's a bit of a different ball game now. One, we're a much different company than we were. Two, aside from being a much different company, the market is different. Three, we will have internal incentives. Almost lost that word. We have and we'll be building out internal incentives so that every one of our employees will be able to see some type of bonus as XCM does better. So basically, XCM hitting certain price points being liquid will mean that everybody in the company gets a little kickback. And so we want to incentivize people around what is our most important product and make sure that it's on their minds every day. I think in 2025, depending on what the market looks like and depending on how growth of Coinmetro looks, we could see newer highs towards the end of 2025 into 2026. In terms of Moon, in terms of really seeing, some rocket fuel behind XCM, we need the business to grow, and the business will grow over the next year. We expect it to grow much more than it grew in the last bull run, simply because we're going to be putting more effort and we have a more solid product. and a more experienced team. I think over the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to see XCM and Coinmetro do things that right now seem impossible. And I think you're going to see kind of a bit of a snowball effect. Actually, you're going to see it kind of like if anybody's ever had a kid, right? The first 6 months, first year, first 2 years, first 3 years, first 4 years, they seem like they grow every day. And then you kind of stop realizing a little bit, and the growth, you don't even realize they're growing until somebody who hasn't seen your kid in a while goes, Jesus, what are you feeding this kid? Well, looks normal to me. Huh? That's the type of growth I think we're going to see. As we start to get rid of this tech debt, as we focus on fundamentals, I think we're going to see quick and heightened growth, fast. People are going to notice it. Then we're going to go into this period where there's less things to complain about, there's more things to be happy about. We're going to see a different community focus, and people aren't going to notice so much that we're growing because there isn't things to, there might be a few things every once in a while. People go, remember soon? Ha 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 ha, or whatever, a little bit of reminiscing about things in the past. But we will still be growing behind the scenes. And then again, towards kind of that final, not final, but say as the kid goes from 12 to 18 or something, you see it again, and it's in your face. And so, yeah, I think that's generally what we're going to see. The next 3 to 4 months are gearing up. The 3 to 4 months following that, so the quarter or two following that, you're going to see the growth. You're then going to see a little bit of a low, but we still will be growing. And then you're going to see another massive spurt. And by then, I think the growth will be masked more so in all the cool stuff we're doing, building, etc., rather than kind of people paying attention to our daily volumes as we do now. Will you open a blind book ahead of the 21st removal? So we have a growing tech team, which is great, but we don't have enough resource yet to hit our deadlines and pack in this. So no, we won't be doing it. The idea was that we might put a blind book. The other idea was we might just open up the book for limit orders. However, currently, the engine that runs limit orders on spot is the same engine on margin. And so it's a bit complicated for us to be able to have it on one side and not the other. And to create the blind book, we have to write some additional code. And what that'll do is give us more tech debt, to be very honest. Because we don't have time to kind of revamp the code or build anything new to replace some of that tech debt. And so it's not going to happen. At the end of the day, there's going to be a bit of volatility around the 21st for sure, which would be great for some people. And people that need to be cautious just need to sit on their hands, maybe pop in a limit order and walk away if they're so inclined. But the effect would have been the same. Blind order book, we would have maybe seen a little less volatility, but the other question is how many people would have actually placed orders in the blind order book, which is a question we'll never know. How do I legally pay the least amount of taxes possible when cashing out? I can't answer this question for you, man. You want to get tax advice, especially in whatever domicile you're sitting in. So there is always ways to optimize your tax base. Don't use shell companies because they're illegal pretty much everywhere. So I would shy away from that. Will people be able to earn points through staking alone, either XCM or other assets, passive holders? We do plan to build more point rewarding, or I should say add the point system to more and more products, and staking more than likely will be one of them in the future. When BTC correction, when boomers dump ETFs, election soon. You got to understand there's a lot of traders trading through, actual traders trading through the ETF as well. So there are definitely boomers that have already dumped. There's just been institutions that have bought on the backside. I think what will fuel more of a correction is going to be non-ETF money that begins to dump on exchanges that cause arbitrage opportunities that freak out ETF investors. So we're going to see a range. The low of that range, somebody, I think Victor mentioned 52K. It could go lower than that for sure. It could even see 40s. Not saying it will, so don't quote me on this one. It's not a trade recommendation, but we could see quite a thick range between now and getting closer to the end of the year, especially during the summer. You're going to see volumes, especially from the true institutional side, wane June, July into August. And that's going to have an effect on ETF purchases. It's probably also going to have an effect on regular retail exchanges as well. What's your view on Cadena? I've always liked Cadena. I think what they're trying to do, and I think some of the power they have behind the scenes is a good recipe for success. I've seen some stumbles. I've seen people in inside of that company that should have never been there. Some of them are gone, so that's good. They still have something that could be a great tool in a toolkit for specific industries. I've said this before, layer ones need to focus where their tools work the best. You can't be the best at everything. You have to narrow down the field, and Cadena really hasn't done that. Neither have most layer ones, but they end up becoming famous for something. And you can get a little bit of fame for being the latest meme chain, but that's not going to last. You can get some credit for being the latest NFT chain, but that's not going to last. You need to find industries that can use your underlying technology that solves a problem for them. And I think they need to focus on that, as do pretty much every other layer one, to be fair. Hey Kevin, how do you stay so mentally stable every day? I am in depression. Hey man, life's hard, man. I don't know how else to say it. I always think that when I get up in the morning, if I don't, if it's not the best day, I always think to myself, what am I going to make it worse? Should I dwell on everything that is making me not have a good day and just make my day worse? Or should I focus where I know I can make a change and accomplish something today, feel good about my day, and then start again tomorrow? And I usually go with the latter. Everybody has those days where they feel like, oh man, what am I doing here? Like, what is the point? But everybody has those days. You should have some comfort in the fact that everybody has those days, because everybody does. That's just life. When will clients be able to provide liquidity? Have you decided? Okay, so I already answered that one, Harold, so you should have gotten that answer. Any chance that Coinmetro becoming available in New York? Coinmetro, one word, small m. Acquiring a bit license, not necessarily on the cards right now. I do expect after the election, sometime during 2025, that we may see a push for regulation, something like MiCA, which would be federal regulation. Like we have, MiCA was what we have in Europe. Something like that being pushed across the US, or at least the battle of the SEC versus the CTFC, etc., kind of, CTFC, coming to a point where we now have a federal regulator. And we're kind of waiting for that, because the bit license is a big undertaking, costs millions of dollars to go through that process, and gives you access to one state. Yes, with the wealthiest city in the world, but still one state. And right now for us, it's just not on the cards because of that. So we're kind of in a wait and see mode for federal regulation. What's a solid sell strategy for crypto? Wrote most of my profits down last cycle during euphoria and delusion. Well, I think you just need a plan. It's not about, nobody has like a super amazing, awesome plan. Yes, there are people that know how to read a chart. Yes, there are people that can really feel the fundamentals and know more or less, okay. There are people that follow the cycle, etc. So sometimes people are better at reading things, but you should simply base things on what your needs, your life. All right. Don't put money into something thinking this 100,000, 10,000 euro is going to buy me, that mansion and that island. If it does, amazing, man. Pat yourself on the back. But don't have that be a goal. That's not a goal. goal. That's a dream. And so you can have some stretch goals for sure, but you need to make sure that what the money you put in, you get out. So, I can give you an example, but my example is not going to fit your needs, right? For me, I have assets that I have a very long-term projection on, and I don't touch them. I buy them, I let them go. I still have an exit. This whole thing about buying Bitcoin and never selling it is, ridiculous. And in fact, kind of goes entirely against Satoshi's vision, as per one of our other posters earlier. So, you just need to have a plan, and it doesn't have to be, super complicated. For me, I have, like I said, things that I'll buy, and they're just going to sit there, and I have an exit, and that's it. If it doesn't meet that exit, maybe I'll change course at some point, but I can wait. And if I see a major change in fundamentals, a major change in the underlying facts, I may edit, my position, but they're long term. Then I have things that I'll buy and say, okay, look, this has some potential to move. This is money I'm willing to lose, but I'm going to put this money in here, and as soon as I see X percentage gain, I'm going to pull this much out, and then I'm going to leave this until X percent gain, and I'm going to pull it out. And I don't waver on those numbers. Simple as that. That's it. You don't want to get into a position where you invest too heavily, and then you need to pull money out, because then you're making an emotional decision. And emotional decisions should never be made anywhere in your life. Anytime you make a decision based on emotion, it's probably going to be the wrong one. And even if it's the right one, the process on that decision making is going to be flawed, for sure. Oh, now I lost. There we are. Sorry. Alethium versus Cadena. In terms of public image right now and potential to move in the short term, I would say Alethium. Long term, it's a much harder one. Alethium does some things that better than Cadena. Cadena has the potential to do things that Alethium cannot. So long term, it's a hard one. But if I had to go short term, Alethium is probably the winner. If Trump gets elected being pro-crypto, he might push ETF to pass if he fires Gensler. Well, Gensler's going to leave anyway. I think that's a foregone conclusion. And, he did his job. He's trying to get judicial precedent on a bunch of stuff, and he's getting judicial precedent, win or lose. So, he did his job. Hate him. Well, I was going to say hate him or love him. Nobody loves him. Everybody hates him. So hate him, but he did his job. Did he do a good job? Well, that's a whole nother question. If Trump gets I don't think Trump is pro-crypto. I don't think he really cares about crypto. I think he's a politician. He sold some NFTs because, it behooved him to do so. And he said he likes that he doesn't, he's not worried about crypto or whatever he said, because he had people in the audience that were pro-crypto. So that's it. Now, being on a Republican platform, he's probably going to be a little bit more pro-business and and let's say anti-regulation or a supporter of smaller regulation, which is beneficial in the long run to markets, which is beneficial to crypto. But I still don't think we're going to see that ETH ETF get approved. And I don't think the administration is going to care in their first, if he gets elected, 3, 6, 9 months either. And then it's going to go out of the news cycle because we may be at the end of a cycle, and thus, nobody's going to really care about it again for some time. USD onboarding update. So everybody knows we had signed up, onboarded, and we're ready to roll, just about ready on the tech side, and then this provider lost their banking partner. They were able to get a new partner in the same time that we were speaking with the same partner, and we are now in the process of onboarding with that partner. We're in kind of a final approval documentation phase and also looking at API docs. So our absolute end goal is to get this done before Q4. I'm hoping it happens potentially beginning of Q3, and maybe even sooner than that. But it doesn't fully depend on us, but it is a priority on our side. I made the questions because I couldn't be here at the time. Okay, well, they've been answered, so now you can rewind and have a listen. Will existing XCM staking end on 521 or continue till end dates? Well, 521, Paul, is not going to change anything about XCM staking in terms of APR, etc. That will come with the Mars update, which will happen afterward. Monero. Well, Monero, we still have banking partners that don't like Monero, regulators don't like Monero, so probably not in the cards as of yet. DCA is in the cards for, I believe, Q2. Q2 into Q3, I guess, if I'm not mistaken. So the blockers are tech debt, essentially. And yeah, it's getting imminent, Paul, just to answer that question. Yeah, absolutely hotter than Cadena right now, that's for sure. What price would you be tempted to sell some XCM? Well, long term, we're very far away from my long-term price. Short-term trading, well, I generally don't really have a basket of XCM that I trade, but once the market's back open and running, I very well may. I think for kind of where the company is right now, a fair value for XCM to be trading at and liquid is probably going, and maybe not immediately, but towards the end, and as we get closer to the end of this year, I think it's about 30 cents. And then that next kind of, then onwards up to 50 cents, upward to €1 would be my next target. But that's really just trading targets and not necessarily day trading either. Buying more, well, in the long run, I think even 60 cents is not a terrible position, but it is the long run, not short term. Octa staking has been delayed a bit because of some market maker issues with Octa's own market maker as they've been connecting with us and trying to figure out some issues that are popping up on their side. Once that happens and we get that done, then Octa staking is next on the cards. I need a microphone. I think I have a microphone. Hopefully everybody's been able to hear me. I didn't do a mic check. So yeah, it looks like everybody's hearing me. That'd have been ridiculous. 57 minutes in. Do you think this summer will be boring summer for crypto? Do you think we'll see some crazy pumps? I think in general it's going to be boring, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But there will be some crazy pumps and spikes on different assets. That's inevitable because you'll have more illiquidity than you would normally have, and thus relatively small amounts of money can move the market. And I mean altcoins in general, not necessarily Bitcoin. When do you think alt season is going to start? Q3 into Q4. Could Pepe flip Shiba to be number 2 after Elon's Dodge puppy? I don't know, man. I'm not a meme coin guy. Those things at the end of the day, I think, are just white noise. I get that people have fun with that stuff, but it also tarnishes a bit the ability for people in this industry to talk about crypto like it's a real market. So yeah, I don't really get involved in meme coins, but who knows, man? I don't know. When Oliver said he's moving back to England, I had a feeling this might end up happening. Well, I don't think that had anything to do with it, but actually I know it didn't have anything to do with it. Any updates on USD deposits? Already gave that update. So that I haven't seen necessarily within the scope between now and the end of the year, but it's in reality it's a relatively low lift, the V1. V2, V3, V4, think like PayPal for crypto is definitely a bigger project. But I'll try to get updated up for you, Paul. Hit me up on Telegram. Sneaky Fox. Scammer. Okay, nice. You look healthier than ever. Did you start eating meat again? Hey, Lou. Funny enough, I have eaten a bit of meat. Yeah, I have. I started going to the gym a bit, and yeah, just needed to get some more protein in my diet. Generally, though, most meals I eat still fall within vegan territory, and I definitely don't delve down the road of other animal products like cheese and milk, lactose, etc. But yeah, I have eaten a bit of meat, so yeah, you noticed. Have you looked into chia having the highest Nakatomi coefficient, and what about Telegram's gigantic, right? Rising. What about, what would be the best alt to defeat? Sol, mostly a meme, Parasite, Paradise Hell. Jesus, I kind of chopped the shit out of this questions. We have looked into Chia. I've seen it on a short list somewhere. For Telegram, we looked at it a long time ago when they got hit, was it with the SEC or whoever made them return all the money that they did during their ICO. Haven't looked at it since, to be very honest. I've had a few people ask me about it. I don't know if our listing committee's been looking at it. I can definitely take a look. You know, Sol, I think if Solana focused on actually solving some problems, given that they're a bit more centralized, they could potentially become kind of what XRP wanted to become, which was underpinning bank operations and other things that kind of need to be not need to be centralized, but generally probably will be to a certain extent, at least for the time being. I don't know yet. I mean, I still think you need to beat ETH. You don't need to beat Solana. You still need to be the ETH killer, not the Solana killer. Solana, has had a bit of spotlight, but mainly because, memes. And that's not going to last forever. So what happens next cycle, right? I mean, memes, not that there might still be meme coins, but they'll probably be elsewhere, somewhere else. There's always going to be people trying to take advantage of quick money, and they jump from here to there. So I think you still need the ETH killer. And I don't honestly know, again, ETH doesn't necessarily have a focus either, but when you look at most major projects at institutions, financial institutions, they're still working on ETH. What XCM pairs will be available after the 21st? Good question, Harold. Right now, I haven't seen any discussion internally about adding additional XCM pairs. The more pairs we add under the current matching engine, we're actually just splitting liquidity. So with the tech debt revamp, we may choose to change how the logic of the matching engine, and thus more pairs could potentially be beneficial rather than hindrance. Yeah, supposedly, but I don't know if that's really true anymore. When will people get back to CM's office? It's kind of empty in the recent times. Well, if we can get productivity remotely, then we're going to get productivity remotely. That's it. Having people in the office every once in a while is nice. There's going to be a meetup actually in Estonia on Friday. Everybody's going to jump in the office for our end of the week meetings, and then they're all going to hustle off and do some ATVing, an ATV safari actually. So wish them luck. I was supposed to be there, but I couldn't jump on a flight because unfortunately I got stuck with other things. When will Harold finally take over Coinmetro? Oof. That's I don't know, man. I'm not taking bets on that one. Actually, I'll take the bets if you want. I don't know. Not the easiest bet to win, I guess. When will CM allow Terra Luna Classic to trade? Hey, Gavin. I don't think we will. I don't see that happening. So, ever really. Can you beat Binance Exchange? I think we beat them already in some ways. If you're talking about volumes, can we? Sure. In current circumstance, no, but can we in the future? We could. Is that necessarily our goal? Not really. What's your favorite type of honey? I'm not going to say they're all the same, but I don't eat honey, so I have no idea. Yeah, that was supposed to be our first listing, you know that, Harold. Definitely not on the cards right now. I know what you meant. Cameron mentioned a big change coming to the app performance next month or so. It's all about tech debt, man. It's about removing lots of old tech debt that will basically increase performance across our entire suite of products, and then removing the tech debt in its entirety, which will create essentially new products from many different aspects. Somebody asking about quant. That always happens every once in a while. So we're about 4 minutes over the hour. I'm going to try to get to the last of these questions, and then we will part ways. I said from the beginning that I like the idea of quant. I owned some quant back in the day. I don't understand why an ETH token. I don't understand why not mainnet. I also don't understand the business mentality of only going after central banks, because historically central banks haven't needed this type of system. I'm not sure why they would need it now. Now, central banks, depending on your experience and the background of the company, will make all kinds of tests, go public with all kinds of tests. Banks and regulators in general love to talk about how they're testing out new stuff. But actually using it, and then how that really pegs back to the token, given that initially the tokenomics was like, well, people want to use our system, they're going to have to pay in quant. But central bank's not going to buy quant to pay in quant. And I haven't really seen any mechanisms put in place that would mean that they could do so via any other means. I think quant has an amazing community, and I think that's why it's been supported over these years. And yeah, I'm a fan of many things quant wants to do. I just don't get the business. And so yeah, I'm not very bullish on quant. But I have been wrong in the past, so I'll throw that out there. Is there anything planned for spot buyers of XCM below 60 cents? Those who thought the floor will remain, similar to how margin collateral was returned, for example, for a small comp. There's been discussions, and right now there are still discussions. What I can say is there are definitely differences between margin and spot. In that on margin, people can't get out of the trade. They can't go to Uniswap. They can't sell for cheaper. They were stuck, which meant their collateral was stuck, and they couldn't access the collateral. And that's why there was a focus to get the and obviously us pulling the floor meant they would lose that collateral. And so that's why there's been a focus there. We are still discussing internally and looking at numbers, etc., and we will communicate about this at some point in the near future. There isn't necessarily a time deadline of the 21st for spot, because, well, of the reasons I just explained, and that's why we're taking a bit of time to go through everything. ETH price targets, well, I don't really have an ETH price target, to be honest. This market is still very much correlated. I know people watch the Bitcoin ETH price and think that ETH is just going to continue to lose traction, and they may be right, but that doesn't mean it won't go up in Euro USD value. Generally speaking, if we see Bitcoin hit prices that I previously talked about, you will probably see ETH. ETH is kind of due for a better cycle in terms of BTC ETH, in terms of ratio to Bitcoin. If that plays out, now ETFs may be a little bit of a wrench in the gears, so to speak, for that to play out. If it does play out, we could see ETH well beyond 10, 11, 12K. At the height of the cycle. However, if it doesn't, I still expect ETH to do well, potentially doubling from its current price point, but definitely losing traction to Bitcoin. But again, we still don't know what ETFs are really going to do to this underlying market. We've seen what they've done, but we really don't know what they're going to do. So there's a lot of questions in the air. He means you need a better mic. Yeah, I get that. I think I'm just too far away from the mic, to be honest. I don't think that played anything, any role, to be honest. Bad sound. Okay, yeah, sorry, I was far away from the mic. My apologies on that. I've seen a few people talk about this. I think it's being looked into. I'm not the guy who does the listings, but I do believe it's being discussed. CAD right now is on back burner behind USD. Once we get USD out of the way, we can focus back on other currencies, CAD being one of them. Haven't heard of this one, so would have to dig a little deeper. Hey Jack, no, I'm not worried. Not worried. Thank you, Owen. I appreciate, and thanks for all the help recently. Appreciate that. Well, we have a new chief product officer who started just recently. As far as AMAs and questions and stuff like that, I think right now we're going to be focused on a lot of stuff that should have been done over the last few years that wasn't done, to make sure that we are where we need to be in terms of compatibility, optimizing our internal systems, etc. And so our new CPO might be behind the scenes for a bit of time, but I think eventually, probably towards the end of this year, you guys are going to hear a lot more about him. As far as token questions, well, you can always pop them in Telegram. I don't plan on dying, and at least not, in the relatively near future. Tokenomics about the governance token, we'll talk about those probably, maybe even in the next AMA. So we have a working draft, but there still might be some changes. So we'll definitely talk about that. I didn't notice any other questions from you. If I missed them, I apologize, but I didn't see them. Tau was being worked on and then had to be paused. It's not imminent, but we've already done some of the work, I should put it that way. Hey Lou, I guess you can ask Oliver this, he's still on Telegram, but officially speaking, he hasn't been for some time. We had a different setup within the company on how we came to decisions that mimic the board. Well, definitely wasn't me, Victor, so, don't point the finger. Best AI project. Well, Tau is definitely doing cool stuff. Thought is doing cool stuff, though people just don't know about it. I think, there's a few projects out there doing stuff. NXRA, to be honest, I gotta do a little bit of a deep dive into them. Don't really have an opinion, Victor, for today. But I will, if you ping me on Telegram, I'll try to get you one in the near future. I honestly think in terms of where the token could go and in terms of where it is now, Thought is a good bet. But, they need some time to be able to push some focus also on the business aspect of having a token and not just the business aspect of being a business. Well, we'll see. Maybe we can make that happen. Okay, well, I see you might have popped him in now under a different username, so. Thanks, man. All right, man, we're 12 minutes over the hour. I appreciate everybody coming here. Thanks for watching. Make sure you do a thumbs up, confetti, heart, I don't know, something, If you haven't subscribed, why not? Please do so. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. Usually I would end these things saying, spend some time with friends and family. That was a whole COVID thing. We don't really need to do that anymore. But still, spend some time with friends and family. Take some time off. Chill out a little bit. I usually say buy some XCM. You can't right now. Get some money on the platform. Get ready to buy some XCM. You might be able to get a really good deal. And be along for the ride into through 2024 and into 2025, which I think is going to show you a whole new Coinmetro, and I'm excited. So, Victor, let's see. No, they cannot. Decentralization for certain things will never be faster, but in certain applications, faster isn't necessarily the first thing you look for. So, can they compete? Yes. Can they compete in terms of compute speed, thus servicing a swath of customers that need speed? No. Great MA, Kevin. Thank you, Jack. Thanks, everybody. Liquidity is inbound, absolutely. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the support, as always. And, thanks for the support and the criticism in Telegram. I'll see you guys in Telegram. You can always reach me there at Kevin Murcko. You can tweet me or X me or whatever. I don't know what you say anymore. I still say tweet. I think so does everybody else. On X at Kevin Murcko as well. See you guys soon. Cheers.